Greetings, beautiful people. I hope you're having a blessed day. If you aren't, just remember, I love you. God loves you. You are so loved. Today, we're going to be talking about cycles, and I don't mean like bicycles. I'm talking about spiritual cycles. This is something that I've been thinking about for a while, mainly because I've been kind of noticing these cycles and patterns in my own life, and by noticing them, I am able to grow from them and understand them more and kind of change some habits and just things in my life that have been repetitively happening. I think that's the word, but just continuously happening in my life. And I'm starting to come to a place where there are certain things in my life that I'm just kind of ready to be done with and not wanting to go through all of these cycles and karmatic cycles as well. Just ready to be free from a lot of programs, if that makes sense. But let's just jump into this whole thing because it's not a real topic, but it's something that is interesting to talk about or even think about, because it would be argued that this doesn't even exist. But hey, that's fun, right? Let's bring it into existence now. The way I think about this whole cycle thing is, imagine like a Ferris wheel, right? And at the bottom of the Ferris wheel is earth and the ground and whatnot, but it's a very big Ferris wheel, and when it cycles up or around, it's peeking through the clouds. And imagine that being like a elevated level of consciousness or mindset or energy or vibration. And at the bottom of this Ferris wheel is a lower vibration or lower energies, such as pride, hate, greed, just pretty much anything negative you can think of. Imagine at the bottom of this Ferris wheel. Now, on the Ferris wheel, there are like different cart carriers that go around, right? And think of these carts as moments in time, right? And each time, you get onto this Ferris wheel, and now you're in a cart, and now you're going to go on this little cycle, this journey round and round, right? And each time you go through this cycle, things change. Not every moment in time is exactly the same, but it's familiar, right? And sometimes we get very comfortable in cycles or in certain situations and atmospheres and environments where we feel okay, or we kind of expect the same thing. For example, cycles are pretty normal in life, or for me at least, because I notice the cycle from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. That's a cycle. It's something that I repeat every single day of my life, well, not every day, but most of the days, I get up, I wake up, do whatever I do during the day, and then go back to sleep. For some people, their days are consistently the same. They do the exact same thing day and day and day and over. And that's kind of like a cycle, right? And for me personally, I'm the type of person that I get very, very, very irritated when I'm stuck in a loop or a cycle of doing the same thing over and over again, to the point where I just get anxious. My spirit gets very annoyed, and it's like, all right, it's time to break this cycle. We can no longer keep going back and forth and doing the same thing over and over again. And unfortunately, it's not so much of a good thing, because like when it comes to work and job situations, I get turned off very fast. But back to the whole topic here. Cycles happen in all of our lives daily, whether we acknowledge it or not. Some cycles are bigger than others. Some are more important than others. Like if you think about the cycle of life, we're born and then we die. That's a cycle. The year is a cycle. If you think about it, we take trips around the sun every single year. Your birthday, right? That's a cycle. One trip around the sun each year. And these cycles, they happen regularly, right? And that's where it's kind of like a trap sometimes, because sometimes we get in this mindset of expecting or something to happen the same way over and over again. And it does. It becomes habit or something that we are used to or accustomed to. And that's when I say like cycles are somewhat like programs. We run on these programs, and I know we're not computers, but our minds are really smart. In fact, our minds are literally smarter than computers, but we don't know how to use a whole thing. We can use parts of it here and there, but our minds aren't unlocked like that. It is what it is. Maybe one day, but the majority of us, we can't use our entire full brain. But anyways, our minds are like computers, and they run on programs. And so sometimes when we do the same thing over and over again, that registers as a program, and then it becomes our reality, and then we get stuck in that loop or that cycle. And basically, over the past couple of weeks, I've been noticing these little cycles in my life, some big, some small. and how I feel and how they affect me and how, I feel emotionally, spiritually, and even physically, and just mentally, just all of that. And noticing like, okay, well, this cycle, it's not benefiting me. It's not doing anything positive for me. So it's time to break that. Or noticing the good cycles, the positive ones, the ones where I am praying and studying the Word of God, and noticing, oh, like this habit, this program, or this pattern is very healthy for me. It's actually moving me in a better direction than this cycle. And it's strange to even think that, whoa, we can be in multiple cycles at one time, like a spiral, right? Like a circle, with a circle on the inside, with a circle on the inside of that, because cycles are circles. So, there's a end point, beginning point. They all meet back up with each other. But back to the Ferris wheel, like the little thing that I was talking about. I don't even know what to call it, but I think of cycle as kind of like a Ferris wheel. So sometimes you're going to be up, sometimes you're going to be down. It's like meaning as vibrationally, you're going to be up and down. Your moods are going to be up and down. Not everybody, obviously, some people have conquered those things in their life and they're able to just stay afloat all the time, and that's great. That's the goal that I'm trying to reach, at least, is to be in a space where I can just stay at the top of this Ferris wheel and stay above, all the stuff and negative things in my life, at least. So the Ferris wheel goes up, and to me that's like a elevated level of consciousness, meaning like love, joy, happiness, enlightenment, just all of those positive things, right? More positive things: success, happiness, strength, wealth, health, power, courage, love, harmony, all of that, just positive emotions. Those would be the elevated things, right, at the top of this Ferris wheel. And it kind of seems like you're above the clouds, peaches and sunshines, it's peaches and cream. Everything is happy. Everything is great. But then life has to kind of humble us, or whatever you want to call it, and bring us down. And we go back down to this pattern or this cycle. And sometimes we get stuck at the bottom, right? It feels like the Ferris wheel isn't moving up or moving around again. It feels like we're stuck in this space. And yet we are repeating the same cycles within that space. And that's kind of why I want to bring all this up, is because, it gets hard to determine where you are sometimes, especially in the day and age that we are in currently. Society has completely shifted. Time is different. Time and space is not what it used to be. Things are just completely different. So how do I notice these time traps or these loops or being stuck? And, personally, one of my goals of 2021 and onward is to grow. I want to be able to grow, learn, and get better as I go on with time. But the last thing I want to do is be stuck or suppressed or feel like I'm not growing or moving. And nobody wants to feel like that. Let's just be honest. Nobody wants to feel like that. And we probably, as humans, feel sad when we get there. Personally, I do feel depressed sometimes, or I'll feel just in a very low vibrational space where I'm not able to perform the way I would like to. And by perform, I just mean like be the best version of myself and be able to do the things that I'm required to do, like work and whatnot. But when you get to this like low space, it gets hard to do the bare minimum sometimes. And I'm not specifically speaking about depression or anything, but that kind of goes into it, because if you think about it, what is the opposite of happiness and joy? It would be sadness and depression. So there you have this cycle, top and bottom, with depression or sadness, or that being at the bottom, and the top you got the joy, the happiness. And in order for you to appreciate one or the other, you have to go through both of them, right? You have to cycle through these emotions, feelings, times, and all of that. And this can go for anything, but I'm just using that as an example. You won't appreciate being happy if you weren't sad before, if that makes sense. And that might not be for everyone, so don't, speaking for myself here personally, and those that also relate. But you gotta be in a space to understand what that happiness is, or when it comes, you're just gonna be like, okay. And not everybody, but I know I've personally been there, especially in the past, when I didn't really understand what happiness was or what joy or love was. When it came around, I couldn't identify it. But then when I went through like a depression season, and it was a very long depression season, and I came up again, or you know what? I'm gonna change the analogy or whatever. Let's think about it more like so biblically speaking, you have the mountain tops, the valley lows, right? On top of the mountain and in the valley. So let's think about it like that. When you're in the valley, you're going through it, you're battling, and you're sad, you're down, whatnot. You're down bad. Everything is tough down there. You get to the top, and although you still have problems up there, things are a little bit easier to deal with and cope with because you've kind of come above all of the things in your life, right? That itself is a cycle, going up and down this mountain. And most people prefer to stay at the top, and I don't blame them, But here's the thing. You learn your best lessons when you're at the bottom of the cycle, which is why it is a cycle. You have to go through it in order to appreciate life or to grow or to understand, It's harder to grow when you're already at the top because where can you grow to? You've already got to that space. So, cycles happen for many reasons. I'm not an expert on this, so I'm not going to be out here throwing all the reasons they happen. It differs for each person, each individual. You go through whatever you go through, and your cycles are going to be completely different from mine. But it's good to point out that they do exist, whether people like to acknowledge them or not. Personally, again, I'm recording this because I'm acknowledging that I have some cycles, and just to be transparent with you guys, last year, okay, but let me back up. 2019, 2018, I was smoking. 2019, I basically got addicted to marijuana. It became my vice of choice. I was in college during this time. 2020 came around, and I decided to be sober. So I stopped smoking, stopped drinking, stopped all these different things. And I just completely cold turkey stopped. And I decided I'm going to be sober from this point on. So as the year went on, I was fine. Things were fine. Now we came back into we came into 2021 and I was fine. But I noticed as I got closer to the anniversary of when I stopped smoking, that the mental programs that were already there, they start to come back up. And so like a cycle, I got back around to that time frame, even though it's a new year or whatnot, went around the sun and whatnot, but that still feeling it's I don't know how to explain it. There was a connection from last year to this year as far as, my body being you had a cycle. You were smoking during this time and you're not doing it now. Why? So I had this heavy, aggressive desire to just smoke. And it took me a while. I fought it. I prayed about it. I was kind of really going through it a couple weeks ago, and even kind of still now. I had the thoughts, but realizing that this was just a cycle, a time, right? A period in time. Because last year I was smoking around this time, and even though I stopped later on, it came back around. I don't know if I'm even explaining this to you guys right, so forgive me if this makes no sense. I'm sorry. In my head it makes sense, but I know that things can get lost in translation. But yeah, so the time period came back around. Now I'm okay, why do I have this strange desire to smoke? And then I realized, this is a cycle. This is a pattern or a habit, because when you smoke or you do something or you get so used to doing something, it becomes a pattern or a habit. And that was one of my patterns or habits. And now that I'm no longer doing it, my body, not really catching up to the mind, or vice versa, is okay, why aren't you doing this now? You usually do this. Why aren't you doing it? And so it was making me feel some type of way. And then as I just kind of sat back and reassessed and, meditated and whatnot and prayed, I did a lot of praying during this time. I realized, this is a cycle, right? And what am I going to do about it? I'm in a different mental space than I was back then. So, I'm using or applying the tools that I learned back then now, and seeing that, okay, I don't have to do this. I don't have to go back that direction. This is a cycle or pattern that can be ended, right? I could either jump back into this habit and then jump into this cycle all over again, or I can break it here and now and continue to move forward. And I know it's easier said than done, honestly, but it was just something I noticed. And although I'm continuing not to, pay this cycle any mind, I'm acknowledging that it's a real thing. And for other people, their cycles could be completely different. That was just my own personal example of a cycle, but it could be with a relationship. Maybe there's a person in your life that you keep going back to, because you're comfortable with that person. And it's like a roller coaster, right? Or a Ferris wheel. I don't know, up and down, up and down. Y'all break up, get back together, break up, get back together. And now you have created a cycle. And your mind, body, whatnot, flesh is really wanting to continue to go through whatever y'all are going through. But your spirit is like, nah, let's end this. Let this cycle end. Like, let's not keep going through this loop or getting lost in time over this situation. And that's kind of how I feel about some cycles, not all, but mainly the negative ones. It's like eventually you get tired. You no longer want to continue going through this. This could be with work. This could be with school. This could be with anything, anything that isn't positively serving you at the end of the day. Those to me are like these forced loop cycles, and they're very hard to break. But when you notice them and you're able to identify them, then you can be like, oh, okay, let me pull back and see, why am I doing this? Why do I have this habit or this pattern, and how can I change it? And again, it's very hard to change, but it's all a part of it, right? In my head, we were talking about the Ferris wheel thing. I'm going to bring back that because I want to connect something there. But these different carts, right? Because on a Ferris wheel, there's 20 carts or whatnot. I don't even know if they're actually called carts. So forgive me if that's not the actual name of these things, but we're going to call them carts for now. So, people get on the carts and they go up and down or round and round, whatnot. But each cart represents like a moment in time or a different space, right? And as it goes around in time, things change, right? Did I give you guys the actual definition of a cycle? Because I think that's somewhat important to all this. I feel like I should give you guys that definition because it's somewhat important. Anyways, a cycle is a series of events or moments that are regularly repeated over time. So that's the definition. So maybe that will make things make more sense. I honestly, I don't know. But anyways, yeah. So the cycles, or not cycles, but the carts, moments in time, right? So basically, I feel you start kind of at the bottom, right? You get onto this Ferris wheel, and this is a section of hunger and drive. You're hungry for something in life, whatever that may be, whether it's love or wealth or success or whatever. You're seeking a higher vibrational feeling, right? So you're hungry for that. You have a drive for it. So you're working towards it. Then you get to this moment in time where you are actively searching and trying to make whatever feeling or whatever you're looking for become your reality. And this is in my head how cycles work. They're different moments again in time. So you're now in this state where you're searching for answers, you're searching for truth, you're searching for love or wherever it identifies in your reality and your world. So you're looking for all these things. Then you get to this space where you realize, okay, so now you're coming kind of up on this Ferris wheel, and you realize, wait, maybe this is around me, or it's very obtainable, or whatever you're after. You're realizing that, hey, okay, this can actually become my reality. This can actually be a thing. Or I guess in a sense, you're awakening to the fact that you may already have love in your life if that's what you were seeking, or you may already have success in your life if that's what you were after, or whatever. Everyone's different, but then you get to a space where you respond to everything, right? So, I don't know, this is a terrible example. I probably didn't explain it the best way, but then you react and you respond to everything that you just went through. So this whole cycle, right? So you start at the bottom, the drive, the hunger, the search, the awakening, and then the response to all of that. And at this time when you respond, let's say you're at the top of this Ferris wheel, you're above the clouds now. So how are you going to respond to it? Positively, negatively? I don't know. It's based off of whatever you learned during that cycle or whatever's happened. And again, the cycles vary. It could be completely different. Some people's cycles could be with relationships, with jobs, with school, with stress, with anxiety, with depression, with literally anything. As long as you're able to pinpoint or just realize that, this may be a cycle. This may be something that is a repeat offender, if that makes sense. It happens. Again, sin to me is somewhat of a cycle, because we get into this space where most of us are able to combat and battle our sins. And then some of us, myself included, we go right back to these sins. And that could be with anything, literally with anything. Because when you think about it, dang near everything's a sin. I ain't trying to throw no shade or nothing, but in society now, in this day and age, pretty much dang near everything is a sin. which we gotta be careful of. But obviously, I'm not even trying to be that person and be with the whole sin talk. So, to each his own. But yeah, it just comes to this space with cycles that we have to be very careful and mindful of them. Not everybody, obviously, but those who have ears to hear, it's good to be mindful and pay attention to patterns and cycles that we may get lost in time with. Because, ultimately, I know my goal, or one of my biggest goals, is to grow and to get better and to become the best version of myself possible. And it doesn't help when I have the old version of myself or version of myself stuck in these little time loops and cycles in time that, I'm not breaking, or these, same old habits that keep coming around or keep manifesting. And I ultimately believe, and I'm sure this wasn't an Erykah Badu song, but with every lesson learned, blessings will manifest. So whatever you're overcoming, whatever you're growing from or learning, you're going to be rewarded for that regardless. So just be kind of mindful of these cycles, because they will 100% prevent you from growing. Well, not all of them, but the negative ones at least. It could be simple cycles. Again, that it varies on the person, but it could be like you have a negative thought process in your mind, and that's a cycle. And like every single day around the same time, you think of something negative, and you've gotten so used to this for so long that like as soon as 5 o'clock every single day comes around, you think there's one negative thing, like, oh, I'm ugly or some crap like that. And then everyone, or not everyone, but like you start to believe that because you're stuck in this loop, this cycle. That's probably a terrible example. You know what? Let me just get off of this subject, because I feel like I'm gonna talk myself into a hole. Literally, there are so many examples of cycles. It's ridiculous. And I know I've said that already in this podcast, but seriously, if you think about a football field track, that's a circle, right? You have a starting point on that track, and you run or walk around. I mean, some people walk, some people run. Cycle of life, right? But eventually you get back to that beginning point and you move on. Excuse me. I think that's interesting. In a lot of different ways, that track can represent a lot. It can represent a job. It can represent a birthday, someone's life, an event. You start, you complete it, or you go around it, and then you complete it, and that cycle ceases to exist. And now it's a moment of time lost in your subconscious. I don't know. You never know. Like, life is so interesting sometimes if you really think about it. The rainbow around the sun, it births so many different thoughts. Oh, wait. Wrong podcast. I'm not even going to cap. I was thinking about another podcast I recorded. And in this podcast, I was talking about how humans are very complex. And some of us are a lot more like rainbows than we care to admit. Meaning that there are a lot of different sides of us that represent different colors and energies and aspects and just traits that we have. And we're literally like walking computers. In fact, I would say our minds are even more advanced than computers. They're very deep, especially the subconscious and unconscious mind. There is so much going on in there, it's ridiculous. But outside of that, I was like, all right, I seen the sun, and I seen a rainbow around the sun, and it birthed like a whole bunch of thoughts in me. And those thoughts were like, all right, God is the sun, right? God is the universe, and we are the earth, and we rotate around God, right? Now, when I seen the sun, it was kind of covered by a couple of clouds, but there was a rainbow projected around the cloud, or around the sun, a circle, like a complete circle. And I don't know why, but it just reminded me of like, oh, we are the rainbow and the earth, but the rainbow as well. The different versions or parts of ourselves. I don't like using the word version because it makes you sound crazy, but the different parts of ourselves, but they're all just different aspects of God, whether we acknowledge them or not. They revolve around God. They're just different parts. That's why, honestly, the best thing you can do is love yourself, okay? Don't mean like in a selfish way where it's you above everything on this planet, but I just mean loving yourself unconditionally to the point where you can love anyone and anything and everything. And that's the best thing you can do, because literally it's hard. It's hard to be, I'm not going to cap. It is kind of hard to be a human, There's a lot that we deal with. Okay, don't mean to get dark here, but how many of us deal with the fact that we are dying every single day? All right, pending death every single day. Every single moment and second we live is time off of our lives. That's crazy to me. the human mind, if a child, well, I hope a child's not listening to this, but if a child had the like concept to really grasp that, they would go nuts, because then they'd realize that, hey, I really am dying every day. What's the point of living? Love. That's my point, at least. And I know not everybody's point of life is the same, so there's that. But for me, my life cycle has been one of love, because I've noticed the patterns of when I have it, when I don't, when I'm in it, when I'm not, when it's given, when it's taken, just all of that. There's been periods in my life where there was a lack of love so extreme that I didn't care to live. Then when that love came back around, I wanted to live so bad. It was my life's drive. Just saying, I don't know how to explain it, but for me, my cycle of life has been learning to love more. How can I include more love in this and that? Here or there? It's all interesting, honestly. So I found this little cool piece online that I'm going to read. I thought it kind of resonated with the whole cycles thing. But basically it says, within ourselves correlates the cycles of the earth, the moon, and the universe. Our bodies have always been and will always be one with everything around us, no matter if we can see it with our eyes or perceive it with our senses. Understand that your surroundings in order to understand your evolution. So the whole cycle thing is an evolution at the end of the day. Well, from the starting point to the end point, right? Although it may go around and it might repeat, it has an end point and a beginning point. And usually, strange enough, the end point is the beginning point. Like, if you think about trauma or certain events that have happened in your life, you have to kind of go back to that event and process it or understand it in a different perspective or a different lens in order to move on from it, right? If that makes sense. I don't know if I explained that right, but in my head, that makes sense. And that's kind of how cycles work. In order to kind of move on from it or grow from it, we have to acknowledge it, understanding, and somewhat go back to the beginning of where that habit or pattern or cycle even started. And again, this is just for the negative ones. But it's good to just be easy on yourself and know that there are so many cycles that every human goes through daily. I often think that we all hold a universe in our own brains. So with that being said, there's a lot that humans go through, and there's a lot of cycles that go with that. Just like day and night, the cycle of time, and the sun comes up, goes down, the moon comes up, and I know people are always like, you need the sun to help you grow and whatnot. But I argue that it's the moon that really makes growth or helps you grow. And by that, I mean, the moon has a way of revealing the things that we don't subconsciously pick up on, or not subconsciously pick up. We don't consciously pick up on, but we do subconsciously pick up on. I feel like the moon is somewhat our subconscious, revealing to us the hidden things of our natures. Not for everybody, obviously, but for a lot of people, the stuff that is hidden within us, the habits, the patterns, right? And in order for us to grow out of these cycles that we get trapped in, they have to be revealed to us. They have to be pinpointed so we can even understand it. And that's pretty much all I got for this podcast. I just want to say, we are often like plants, and I've even referenced our minds being kind of like a garden, right? And whatever you plant in that garden takes roots and it grows, right? You reap what you sow, all of that good stuff. But we're also like plants, and we grow, we grow daily, sometimes yearly. Eventually, we're all going to be super old. For those that aren't old, maybe you're already there. Hey, there's nothing wrong with it. With age comes grace. But you live, you learn, you grow, you get older, you get wiser, you get more wisdom, knowledge, understanding of everything around you, the people around you, your own placement on this planet and whatnot. And I know I might probably sound crazy to somebody, but it is what it is. The whole point is just be careful of these cycles. If you can acknowledge them, do so. Keep around the good ones, the ones that are, beneficial. Like if you have a cycle of taking care of yourself every day, by all means, don't get rid of that. But if there are other ones that, again, aren't positively serving you in your life, maybe pinpoint it and then pull back from it and try to break these cycles. mean, this is such a big topic, honestly, and there's so much more that could be said. You know, there are generational curses, which are somewhat like cycles, right? I don't know if anybody or any of you guys have heard of generational curses. I mean, I know it's pretty big in a lot of different cultures, but let's say somebody in your family from 1822 had a drinking problem, and that has now cycled over to 4 generations later, right? And maybe you're the current generation, and now you're in a cycle where you drink or you smoke or you do this or you do that, and you're finding it very hard to stop, or you realize, oh, this is a pattern, and then you go back and you realize that, dang, this is a cycle or a pattern that has continued throughout my bloodline or my family, and you're like, whoa, hey, maybe I have to be the one to break that. And personally, that's how I felt with a lot of different cycles in my life, because I have completed some, I actually do pray to complete cycles. Anytime I notice them, especially the negative ones, I'm very quick to be like, all right, Lord Jesus Christ, what are we going to do about this? How are we going to stop this? How are you going to stop this? Because I don't want this to continue or to be a habit or pattern, especially in my future, so I'm very quick to pray about it. And most of the time, if not all the time, God is very quick to stop these patterns or to throw a curveball into the Ferris wheel, if you will, to keep it from moving forward in that direction or in that loop, breaking it and whatnot. And I don't know, I try not to get too stuck in these loops or these cycles. And when I definitely notice them, I can give you guys lots of examples. I was kind of talking about it earlier with relationships, but I had a ex that I kept going back to, and I didn't not know why. Until I realized, all right, this is low-key a twin flame situation, and I recognize that this individual is a reflection of me, and I no longer want to see this reflection. So how are we gonna go within ourselves, or how am I gonna go within myself, fix all this stuff, that way I can get rid of this extra baggage, if you will. So I had to break that toxic cycle, if you will. I mean, I've even had cycles with friends and whatnot and loved ones, and they're very hard. But whole point is, this is, I'm not telling you have to break cycles. I'm not saying that, but if you do want to grow, it's good to just acknowledge these cycles. And I know I've said this probably like 1,000 times in this podcast, forgive me, child, but hey, anyways, it's good to notice them and kind of stop them if you can. And if you can't, it's okay. Eventually the cycle will burn itself out. That actually may not be true. Don't quote me on that, because you honestly just never know. I know I have a family member who has been in a cycle my entire life. So you really never know. I guess at the end of the day, it's more of your own strength. And if you care to stop a cycle, or you want to, or it's something that you are, pushing towards, but, to each his own. Not everybody's purpose is to grow or to learn. Some people have, other intentions and agendas, and that's completely okay. But for those that are interested in growing, starting with cycles and pinpointing them and kind of realizing, okay, this is a good one, this is a bad one, this is a pattern that I want to keep, this is one that I don't, this is a program I no longer want to run on, then you kind of get things done, but just realize that in your negative cycles, when you are down bad or low or in the valley or whatever you want to call it, it's completely necessary for the growth. You got to go through that in order to understand the blessings and everything on the other side of it. But that's the end of this podcast. Sorry if I confused you. That was not my intent. It was just something I've been thinking about for a while, because it was like, I don't know, I just thought it was an interesting topic, because cycles it was so normal in our everyday lives, and I don't think many of us even realize it, from waking up and brushing our teeth, doing all these little things, and the times that you eat during the day, they're all cycles. They're all little mini cycles. Some are bigger than others, obviously, like your birth and going around the sun every year. But it's just interesting to think about and talk about. All right, I'm gonna close this out. I hope you guys have a beautiful and blessed day. God bless you.